People can skip over you too.
Good. Okay. So October 7th is going to be at, what is it called again? The Celebration of Cultures at Centennial Park is going to be our Sister City show.
Yeah, Celebrate Nashville Cultural Festival, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, it's changed name like 3 or 4 times. The particular time that's going to be started? Do you know?
I checked the website just a few minutes ago, and it seems the starting time seems to have changed from 9 a.m. to around 10 a.m. So right now it's 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday the 10th. Saturday 7th.
And do we have enough people to cover it?
I think so. I mean, we could always use some more help
I should be there.
setting up and tearing down.
Okay.
Before 10 and after 6. We could use some more help with that. But as far as someone there physically during the day, hopefully folks, y'all can just show up. I mean, I'll probably be there all day, and I think we'll have some more people there most of the day. I was going to say I'm going to bring a table to set up with snap stuff on it. We'll have our pamphlet that we made up for the show to hand out. And if any of the participating photographers want to bring their cards, their business cards, put out on the table, you can bring those with you when you bring your photo and your photos for the show. If you want to bring them that morning, any of you who haven't brought them by my house yet, you can bring them that morning on the Saturday the 7th, sometime before 10. You can bring your cards as well, or if you can't bring your photo that morning and you want to bring them to my house sometime before then, you feel free to contact me, and I'll be happy to take your pieces over to the show that morning.
How many photos are we missing, Wayne?
I don't know. Of course, we have all 24 of the Magdeburg photos. I have all 4 of those. I have several of the Nashville photographers' pieces, but I'm almost sure I don't have all of them.
So should we get there like at 8 to start setting that up so it'll be ready by 10?
I think that would be safe.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would be safe.
Help set up, be there at 8 o'clock in the morning on October 7th.
Yeah.
And can I add to the next stage of that? We're going to switch the Hotel Preston current exhibit to the Sister Cities exhibit starting the week of October the 16th. And so it's going to be a kind of a regular drill. Photographers are going to have to pick up their pieces, anybody that's exhibiting right now in the Hotel Preston, on October the 13th or October the 14th. And this is really important. We need a curation committee on Sunday, October the 15th. I think we usually meet around 1 or 1:30. And we've got 48 pictures. That's a lot. And we just have to have people that can do this, because I can't. I definitely can't do this. But I don't have the skill to do this.
Okay.
Diane, did you say we pick up our photos on October 13th?
Let me look. Yes, Friday, October 13th.
Oh, wait a minute. Friday in October is the 15th, I believe.
Nope. Friday the 13th, Saturday the 14th. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Just a regular.
Gotcha. Yep.
Yeah, just,
Got it.
and that's regular, and of course, they'll, with some luck, there'll be the sign out sheet for that, but I don't know that we need a sign in sheet, because really Wayne is gonna be bringing them all over. As
Right.
best as I can tell.
Yeah, on Sunday, I guess the 8th, I'll take the photographs over to Hotel Preston.
And we can't use the room we normally use, which is unfortunate, the boardroom, because it's being rented. We're going into that other room called the network room. And Wayne, try to get these boxes as dense as you can, because we need to leave as much space as we can for the current exhibit pictures. And if with luck, they'll be taken down on Wednesday, which would be the 11th. And we will go forward.
Okay, Diane and Wayne, since we have we don't have everybody who's involved in those shows on the call, I imagine you all will send out a good email telling us all these dates.
Yes, I will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Carl, any other business before we get to our
Okay.
fun part?
So we got the JCCC show coming up. The reception looks like it's October 11th,
Yep.
Wednesday night. Mike DeBose will be speaking October 24th.
Nope.
No, we put him into January because of
Oh, did
Gerald
you?
Frigal.
Okay. I was looking at the wrong email then.
Yep.
Okay. So he's going to be in January.
Yeah, because we didn't want to conflict with Gerald.
Okay. We've decided the 28th. Me and Gerald have the 28th of October. We're going to meet at Newsom's Mill in Bellevue. We have
Yep.
picnic tables there.
You have a couple.
It's got
It's
a couple
free
of-
and there's parking.
And if it's free and it's parking. And Gerald's going to give a little class on his Instabox camera.
This thing.
Ooh,
So, and we're thinking
It
can
has
have
like all the
500 people.
developing and stuff's inside here. So it's like, it's a camera and it's a dark room. Same
Ah.
thing.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be doing, they're about like, I don't know, 4x6 paper negatives. And then the idea is that you can do the paper negative and then you put this attachment on here. And then you take a picture of photographic paper again to flip the negative to positive. So you have like an instant, paper print that you can just do on the
Oh.
street. Yeah. There's dispute on when these things were first made and used. They're pretty popular in Mexico, but they're typically known nowadays as Afghan cameras, because there was a couple of famous guys in Afghanistan who used them. But there's the people in Mexico get pissed off if you call it an Afghan camera. So let's just call it an Instabox camera. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to be doing. And so all y'all will get maybe not all of you, but you'll get paper prints from this, assuming that Mother Nature, i.e. the sun, cooperates, because it's like iOS 3, very, very slow film.
What time you
So
want to start
you
that
got to
in the
stay
morning?
still for about a second or so. But anyway, that's what we're doing.
Hey, we didn't ever come up with a time. What time do you think would be the best to get
Oh
out?
gosh. Well, I was looking at, it should probably be kind of middle of the day, maybe. By
Noon?
that time, I
11
mean,
o'clock?
pardon? Yeah,
11
late,
o'clock?
like what, 10, what, I'm sorry, what'd you say? One more?
11 o'clock?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do 11, and we can go for as long as you guys want. It doesn't really matter until, the sun goes down.
And we'll do a potluck lunch. People
Yeah,
bring stuff.
yeah, that's the idea. Because I think if everyone brings a little something for a simple, lunch or something, should work. I'm gonna go check it out because a while back they kind of renovated a little bit. They put in like a new picnic table or two, and they paved this area where you can walk in a little bit more. And there's usually not very many people there at this time of year. So yeah. Anyway, that's the idea. And I've been there lots of times doing photos and stuff. So it's it's pretty convenient, and like I said, it's free. There's parking. There's some interesting backdrops there. So, and there's the river. It's there. So
Okay, sounds good.
yep.
All right. Is that anybody else got anything before we start our program?
All right, I'll briefly appear. Standing back. Tonight we're our major topic is to hear from Emily Neff. And I'm delighted that we actually have Laura Carpenter, who's going to give her a perfect introduction, as if we don't know our friend Emily, but some of us don't. So yay, take it away, Laura, and then we'll turn it over to you, Emily, and you've got the rest of the meeting. And I believe I've got share screen set up for you. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm delighted to introduce you all to, if you don't already know, the wonderful Emily Naff. She is an associate professor of photography at Nashville State Community College, having earned her degree in photography at Middle Tennessee State University and done some photography work at University of Memphis also. She is was one of the founders of Snap, I believe. Is that right? Long ago at a somebody's kitchen table, at your very own kitchen table. I think I got involved like a couple meetings after that. And Emily has curated many student shows at Nashville State, curated the Snap Show Landmarks, which was was at the exhibited at the public library at Green Hills, but I think maybe one of our last shows before COVID. At least it was right before then. She has led many study abroad programs on photography, in conjunction with her work at Nashville State, including programs in Italy, the Netherlands, Japan, Brazil, and Spain. I personally got to watch her in action in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam. We'll always have Rotterdam, Emily and I. And I think for that reason in particular, Emily is especially well suited as a juror of a show that is about two different countries and about ways of life and ways of seeing and ways of photographing in across cultures and showing our ways in the world. Emily is also a member of the Photo Girls, of which I am also a member, a loose collaboration of women photographers who get together and talk about everything but photography, and a fabulous photographer in her own right. If you have not visited her website and seen her newly updated galleries of people, places, and things, I encourage you to go there at emilynaff.com, I believe. With that, I'll turn it over to Emily. Yay. Thank you for doing this for us.
Thanks, Laura. Yeah, I was really intrigued and interested when I got the initial email. I think it was from Wayne asking me to serve as a juror. And felt like for me, this was an easy yes, because as Laura mentioned, this idea of kind of trying to capture a sense of place and how we represent a location and a culture is something that I've put a lot of thought into in my years teaching abroad with my students, and then also just in my own personal work. In my study abroad classes, my advanced students always have an essay called Sense of Place. So I had a lot of that kind of criteria of how we talk about sense of place with my students for this particular selection of images. And I will say, you guys gave me a hard job. This was not easy. I was like, oh yeah, I'm decisive. I'll pick these pictures out real quick, no problem. But as I looked at the selection of images that came through, I had some questions and some challenging decisions to make. And so I actually reached back out to Wayne and Joe. We had a meeting about, okay, let's talk about what is the purpose of this project. That was important for me to have some clarity on a little bit of the background of the project, what the purpose of the project was. And then also we had a really great conversation about what my role is or isn't. And it was very nebulous. It's a very nebulous decision, very nebulous title of juror. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. It kind of, there's a couple of different roles that somebody might play in making a selection of images like this. And I'm not sure that juror is the appropriate title for how I particularly approach this, because for me, a juror, oftentimes there's multiple jurors, so you get multiple opinions, and you rank and you rate and you make selections that way, and then as a group you come back and discuss. And since it was just all on me, it was that felt a little bit different, and I had to think about, was I selecting images just as a standalone, like this image standalone has merit, or am I looking at the overall body of work? And as this body of work travels to another country, to our sister city, how is this body of work going to represent the culture of Nashville? And so those were some of the things that I thought about as I made my selection. And another way that people might approach a project like this, I mean, I'm assuming this is kind of based on that series of books that was done years ago, A Day in the Life of. And those books were created with the use of a photo editor. And when a photo editor for a book or a magazine publication is putting together a body of work, they're going to be a little bit more deliberate and maybe assigning specific locations, looking at how do we want to represent, where are the places we're going to go. And you all did that as a group, and you all came up with a really good list of locations that you wanted to go to. And I kind of inserted myself in that process a little bit because I had some concerns. I wanted to make sure that the selection of images that we had to choose from really represented the diversity that is Nashville, represented our city beyond the kind of typical tourist postcard. And I think that was something that you all mentioned to me when I met with Wayne and Joe about the purpose. One, we want to get beyond that postcard picture perfect images, and also it was expressed to me the desire to represent Nashville over a period of the day, and that influenced my decision as well. So like after I got that little piece of information, I went back and selected. And I will tell you, I made a selection, and then I would go for a walk, and then I'd sit on it for a day or two, and then I'd come back and I'd look at it again, and I would change around when I selected, and then I would think about it some more, and then I would go for a walk, and I'd come back and I'd change around my selection. So at any given day, if I had said, okay, this is my final selection, it might have been a different selection than what my final selection was. And I think that's important to know. I mean, I know all of you guys, or most of you at least, have entered work into juried exhibitions before. And sometimes it's a little bit of a crapshoot as to what the juror is going to choose and what they're going to like. And I tell you, as the juror, it's hard. It's hard to make those final decisions. And so finally I got to a point where I'm like, okay, this is it. Here's what we have. And in saying that, there were some strong images that didn't make the final cut. And that's unfortunately, when I'm given a limited number of images, that's what ends up happening. Now, Wayne, you did ask me to select an additional 20 images for if this was to be exhibited on a broader scale.
Right.
Do you want me to reveal those tonight? We
Sure.
had never set a deadline. We never talked about it. And I thought about that today. It's like, oh, well, I never sent you those. So I can do a reveal of those if you want.
I think the idea was that if at some point we wanted to do this show, a show of the Nashville side only,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that was the idea behind that. So sure, it'd be great.
And is there any conversation about doing this again in another year, or like
Right.
collaborate with the sister cities?
I think I think so. Probably not every year,
Yeah.
because it's a big project, but maybe every other year or something like that. Yeah, with different sister cities. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be cool. Okay, well, what I thought I would do is I would just kind of walk you through what was going on in my brain as I was making some of the selections, and also just kind of show you some of the tools that I use. I don't know how many of you guys use Adobe Bridge. Do any of you use it at all, or is everybody all Lightroom?
I do.
Yeah.
I use Bridge sometimes.
Okay. Yeah. I use Lightroom for my own personal work and to manage my own personal catalog of images, but I use Bridge all the time when I'm looking at other people's images, which of course I do all the time as a teacher. So I find that there's some helpful tools within Bridge, and I'm going to have to share my whole desktop for all of the functions to work. So when I'm making an initial selection, can everybody see? You should see 3 rows across or 3 rows down. Got 3 horizontal rows. This is everything. So when I made my initial selection, I would just click on an image, hit the space bar, and just like kind of just go through the images. And if something stopped me, I would rate it. And then I would go on, and something would stop me and I would rate it. So I kind of started with that process of like going through and saying, okay, I want to come back and look at this. I want to come back and look at this. And that was just that kind of initial pass through. And then once I did that initial pass through, I then came in and I filtered. So I would have gotten down to a selection that's something like this. So these are I use a rating system of 3 stars is good. So I kind of just use 3 stars as like as my base. And then in this particular scenario, I use 3 stars and then 2 stars. For my own personal work, I use 3 stars and then 4 stars, and very, 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 very few images actually get 5 stars. But for this, what you'll see is my images that are rated with the 3 stars. Those are the images that were the final selection images. And then my 2-star images were ones that were up for consideration for a variety of reasons. So when I got to this point, I started a little bit more of a curation. So I don't really want to spend too much time talking about the images that I didn't select, except for to say some of it was technical. Some of them were for technical reasons. If I noticed any issues from a technical point of view, then it wouldn't have gotten rated. And then when I got to this point, I started thinking about the images that really stood out to me. And then I started thinking about the images and how they tell the story. So and I would sort them like this so that I was looking at them across the time of day, so that I could look at that and think about, okay, what kind of images do we want that represent the morning? And I know I talked about sticking away from those kind of picture perfect postcard images, but this one made it because it was a really, when I looked at the kind of the early morning, I felt like it was a good capture of early morning. I really was kind of wishing there was a person in there, but I picked that because it did kind of represent kind of a start of the day. And then this one as well, that was the cafe. And really, this image, I mean, I could spend a lot of time looking at this image. I picked this image, and there was other images that made reference to Covenant School. but might not have had enough visual reference in there for people who weren't aware of what the red ribbon symbolized to understand why that was significant. Whereas I think with this image, there's no doubt as to what this image is referring to, with all of the signs in the background. And then we also get this two men engaged in conversation. So one of the factors that I really considered in the selection of my images is, did it tell a story? Because I was thinking about this, a day in the life of, and that's why there's a lot of pictures that are good kind of urban landscape images that you know, show our built environment, but some of them kind of didn't make the final cut because I was really looking for those images that told a story. And that's why, like this one that doesn't have people in it has visual clues in there that tell a story. And I will make a quick comparison between this image that did make it into the show and some other images that had mural art or street art in them. And part of that has to do with intellectual property and copyright. If you take a photograph of something that is a mural and the only thing in the image is the mural, then that's just a copy of somebody else's artwork. And you know, there are some issues, and muralists will really get in on this debate about intellectual property rights for those muralists. So those images I did not select for that reason. But this one, because it shows the mural in the greater landscape and it's telling a story about the city, that's a little bit different. It's not just a copy of somebody's mural. So I hope that makes sense, the difference between why I might have selected this one versus something that was just a straight up shot of a mural. There were several images that represented the farmers market, and I definitely wanted to tell this, you know, show that some aspect of the farmers market, because you know, this is Tennessee. Of course, farmers markets are universal. There's farmers markets all over the world. But you know, I wanted to definitely show some of our farmers market. And so when I looked at these 4 pictures in particular, and I think there was a few others as well, at this point I selected the strongest photo. And in my mind, this particular photo had the strength of a really strong composition. I love the way the light creates this diagonal line that leads you right down to her face. I like that she's engaged in motion. We can tell she's setting up. You know, we've got the nice flowers that are framing her face, the hat with her logo on it. The framing of this shot really is, to me, what set it apart from some of the other shots that were of the farmers market. It was a little bit stronger, more strongly composed, told a little bit stronger story. I waffle back and forth on this one. I will tell you what I liked about this. I liked the story. I liked the 2 men engaged in conversation. I liked that it showed woodworking. You know, and again, kind of telling the story of Nashville of Middle Tennessee. We have a lot of craftspeople and artisans who work with wood. And so I liked that aspect of it, but there was some other just kind of framing elements of the shot that just weren't as strong to me as that other shot, which is why I ended up going with the other one instead of this one. This one is in the in the second round. I'll go ahead and give you my reveal secret. All of the images that are labeled green, those were my second tier shots. So when Wayne asked me to go back and choose an extra 20 images that would add to, that was one of the ones that I selected. As I said, I tended to choose mostly images that had people in them. And there was a few exceptions. So we've got this downtown urban landscape shot. We've got the Hattie B's truck. Both are just really strongly composed images. A lot of attention to the framing on this one. I love this tree down here. Like that doesn't happen. That's not accidental. If it is, don't tell me. Don't tell anybody. Like I meant to frame it so that that tree showed up right there in the middle. That little bit of nature among this sea of the urban environment to me was really interesting. And then you have that mirrored with the little touch of nature up here with the bird. So that's one of the reasons why this image made the final cut. And then Hattie B's, again, it's a tight composition. So some of the images that might not have made it, a lot of times the composition was a little bit loose. The framing could have been tighter. Maybe it wasn't obvious what the subject was. Whereas this one, there's a lot of attention to the little details that happen when you really pay attention to how you're framing a shot. And those happen here. Things like this little bit of space that allows the truck to have its own space in the frame, that kind of stuff matters. So many times I'll see people will take a shot and they're framing the truck, then they forget about how the truck intersects with what's in the background. I did a Sam Abel workshop years ago, and I love the way that he talked about this. He called it the micro composition. So, your macro composition is the big picture, how is the image framed? The micro composition is what are the ways that you allow something to have its own space in the frame. And this little detail right there, that made a difference. It allows the truck to be framed really nicely. And of course, if you know me, I'm a sucker for good color. So I like the repetition of the red. This color palette is a simplified color palette, which makes an image a lot stronger. We've got a lot of this repetition of the neutral grays and blacks, but then we've got these really strong pops of red. And then, of course, it's hot chicken, right? So everybody knows Nashville hot chicken, or at least people in Nashville know Nashville hot chicken, and now people in Germany know about Nashville hot chicken. So again, it was some of those little visual clues that helped tell the story. I should pause for a second. When I hit the space bar like this, are you all seeing the image full screen? Okay, good. So this, did I hear a no? It's not going to full screen?
To the extent the image fills the screen with
Okay.
the resolution that it is, it is.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it might be showing it 100%. It's just not as big as your screen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There is a gray border around this one, but I think it's
Yeah, and it's the only image on the screen right now, right? You don't see any
Correct.
thumbnails. Okay, it's a weird quirk with the way that Bridge works with Zoom. So I should have asked that earlier. So this image really spoke to me, and I appreciate the response from the group when I asked for diversity of experiences within Nashville, and there's some visual clues as to that we're at a synagogue, and the story that's being told with the kids walking in, and then the fact that there's a security guard standing out front. All of that is part of telling the story. I like the way that the shot is framed with the sculpture in the foreground. That makes for an interesting framing device that keeps my eye focused on what's happening there in the center as the men are walking into the temple. All right, so these three are going to be interesting to talk about, because I knew when I saw them, I wanted to include one of the three, because what I liked about them, one, it shows Radnor Lake, which is it's a favorite spot for many people in Nashville. It shows that we have this beautiful natural environment within Nashville that's unique. I mean, the amount of green space that we have within Nashville is something that I personally have always treasured as somebody from Middle Tennessee. And it is unique among American cities that we have so much green space between Radnor Lake and the Warner Parks. And then again, I said earlier, I was looking for the pictures that told a story. So when I was looking for pictures that kind of showed the nature, but then also told a little bit more of a story, I was drawn to to this setup, to the scene that somebody photographed. And I spent some time back and forth with them, deciding which was going to be the one that made the final selection. And while from a photographic point of view, I actually prefer the second and the third images. Like, I feel like compositionally they're a little bit stronger. I like the one on the far right with the gentleman, where we can see a little bit of his painting. The one in the middle with the two people working and the lake in the background. Compositionally, I really like both of those shots. But to me, the one on the left told a little bit more of the story of the location that they were in, their relationship to the environment, this trail going down, and then the lake in the background. So while, you know, the second and third pictures, I really like as strong images, I liked the story, the way that the story was being told. It was more about, it wasn't about those specific individuals as much as it was about the idea of people taking their painting supplies and going to the edge of the lake. It's a nice moment. It's a landmark in Nashville, and it's a well composed shot. And I think if it had just been the sculpture, not the people, I might not have selected it. But I liked the story that was told with the people looking at it and the kid with his hand on the ball. All right, I'll talk about the drag brunch here, because we've got this one here next, and then this one, and there were several good shots. There was, I think, 3 or 4, maybe more than that were submitted that were from the drag brunch in East Nashville. And again, that was one that was a fairly challenging selection to make as to which is the one that makes the final cut. And like I said, I could go back tomorrow and I could have chosen a different one. I chose the one on the far right because of the story. There are certain elements, you know, our performer here, you know, in full, you know, performance mode with the arm out, swigging from the bottle of champagne. There's a vibe that you get from this. It's a fun scene. You can tell people are having a good time. The way that everybody is looking in this direction, and then the dollar bill in the hand, right? Like this and this, you know, all of that lent to tell the story. This one did not make my initial cut because it was more of a picture of this person than it was the storytelling aspect of it. So it did end up making, you know, round 2, but for round 1, I wanted the ones that were going to tell a little bit more of a story. This one actually looks a little bit like something you'd see in a lifestyle photo shoot. Like, it almost looks a little bit posed because I love this interaction here, you know, between the gaze of this guy, you know, hanging out and chatting with his friends. Again, some of the signs in the background are part of what give it the sense of place. So I'm looking for these little visual cues and thinking about how somebody in Germany is going to say, well, you know, we've got bars, you know, we go drink beer, but what makes this unique to Nashville? And little things like the signs here that point to Memphis and Knoxville, the signs with all of the different events in the background. Of course, we've got the honky tonk, right? So some little clues that add to the story of this being Nashville. Yeah, so a lot of times it's those little things in a scene that can help tell the story. So like this one, for example, this one's loaded with things to look at and imagery. I'm looking at this again for the first time in a while, and I'm seeing things that I did not see the first time. So for me, again, it's back about the storytelling. You know, I want to read the article in the newspaper. I want to chat with the person behind the table. I want to figure out what's on these T-shirts and who they are and who took those photographs, and the history and the story behind this painting and the fabric here. So there's a lot of clues in this particular image that help tell the story of Nashville and the people of Nashville. This one cracked me up. It still cracks me up every time I look at it. There is a few good Bachelorette pictures, I will say, of the kind of the downtown Lower Broad Bachelorette scene. And I'm trying to remember which was the one I actually picked as the fun. I think this was the final selection. And between those two, it was really, it was a hard call because there was interesting things going on in both of them. But this was the one that I made the final call because, you know, these pedal taverns are ubiquitous in downtown Nashville now. You can see some of the signage in the background that helps give you a little bit of the sense of place. You've got the women on the pedal are interacting with the photographer. So that also tells me there's a little bit of implied permission for them to be photographed. So that was why, like, that one ended up being the final call for, like, how are we going to represent the bridal party madness that is now on Lower Broad. And then another subject that was captured very artfully in multiple ways, and I assume by multiple photographers, was the barbershop culture in Nashville, you know, especially among our Black community in Nashville. You know, it's well known that the barbershop is a hub of communities. And so I appreciated the photographers who went into the community and tried to capture some stories of the men who are enjoying some camaraderie in this location. And really it was the camaraderie that made me pick this one. I love this guy's laugh. I want to know what he's joking about, like what just got said. And you know, and this guy right here. So these facial expressions are so joyful that for me was the kind of the clincher as to why I selected that photograph. These other three photographs are all in their own right really strong photographs. But when I was like, okay, I'm going to select one that kind of represents this culture, just like I selected one of the farmers market, that was the one that made the final cut. And like I said, you know, these other images are all really strong in their own right. Let me get back to where I can show it a bit. So there's some interesting things compositionally about this photograph that I really liked as well. I like the color palette. So it's a simplified color palette. So just like I talked about in the Hattie B's shot where the color palette was simplified, you don't have a lot of different colors competing with each other. If both of these guys weren't wearing red shirts, I'm not sure I would have picked this photograph. If one of them was wearing a plaid shirt and the other one was wearing one that was a different color that didn't jive, I might not have selected this. But from a photographic kind of graphic point of view, that repetition of those colors, even then repeating into the reds in the seat chairs, and then there's some other little pops of red throughout the scene as well. From this plaque up here to this flag, there's something red here. So to me, that was visually interesting. The other thing that was visually interesting to me is the repetition of shapes in the background. When you've got all of these, you know, the square frames in the background, creating this kind of pattern and repetition. And then including the square frames of the surveillance footage or that's showing on the TV or on the monitor behind them. And then we get a repetition of other shapes as well. The hairstyle guide that's up here You see that, and then I see like the silhouettes of this man's face, like the shape of his face, and then some shapes back here. So kind of from a formal point of view, those are some of the reasons why I kept going back to this photograph as a strong photo. But as I mentioned, really the first thing, it was about the emotion. It was about the moment that was captured, and the fact that I really wanted to know what just got said. Like, right, why are these guys laughing? Uh-oh. I think I just hit the wrong button. Give me a second. All right, can you see my screen again now? Okay, thanks for nodding, Wayne. Let's see, did I skip over any of those I wanted to talk about? All right, so this is another one that was selected. It's got some weird distortion going on, and this is one of those cases where actually kind of I'm going with it. I like the distortion. I like the pattern that was created from the repetition of all the cowboy boots. I like the expression of the subjects. I'm assuming these are the salespeople at the boot shop. Obviously, this is one of those iconic things that visually represents Nashville. But if it had been just a picture of the cowboy boots, I don't know that I would have selected the photo. Part of what pulled me to it is I love this guy's expression and his gesture. So when looking at people in photographs, I'm always drawn to gesture and expression.
I'm not sure if you know it, Emily, but this photograph was selected to be on the front page of the local newspaper in Magdeburg.
Oh no!
Yep.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's a good one because it is kind of an easy read as far as the cowboy boots are just a symbol of the United States in general, but specifically some of Tennessee, Texas, that sort of thing. So no, I did not know that. So that's interesting. Thanks for sharing that. This one this is another one that just kind of cracks me up. I love the, well, one, I know it's cheekwood, of course, so cheekwood is great. But being in a photo show and we've got somebody's taking a picture, photographers taking pictures. So it's a very meta photograph. And so that just that aspect of it appealed to me. And again, this storytelling of people coming to one of our famous locations in Nashville. Cheekwood Gardens are famous. They're a big tourist draw, but they're also a place that many locals love to go to and love to visit and love to photograph. So I like that this picture captured that aspect of Cheekwood Gardens, that it's not just a picture of the gardens, but it's why people go to Cheekwood Gardens. Of course, everybody in this Zoom room, we go because we want to take pictures of the pretty stuff. So I like the way that that particular photo captured that place in Nashville that's near and dear to many of us. Lots of great photos of kids engaged in these dancing. And I don't know if they all came from the same event or same photographer. But let me do a quick comparison between these three to talk about. I'm guessing, and I could be wrong, but I'm guessing these were all the same photographer because it looks like it's the same location. And so I kind of did, I kind of went back and forth a little bit about like which one of these would be the ones that I would select. And I settled on the one on the right because again, there was some clues that told me a little bit about what was going on. That it's a festival with the musicians here. So the fact that there's the musicians, that now I know they're dancing and not just kids being weird kids, right? So those little visual clues help tell me a little bit of the story. I also like how in that shot, every figure in the foreground takes up their own space in the frame. So that idea that I talked about earlier about micro composition, When you look at this picture here in the middle, there's this kind of cluster right here of all these people who are kind of grouped in together, and they start to merge with each other in the frame. Whereas in here, each of the kids dancing takes up their own space in the frame. So really it ended up kind of, for me, kind of going back and forth between this one and this one, because I liked the characters and the costume, but there was a few other things going on, like in the background, or not as many visual clues as what was going on, which was why I ended up making the decision for the one on the far right. So much going on in this shot. Love it. I mean, there's the reflections in the windows, the stopping of the motion while also blurring motion. So, you know, technically this is good, but more important than that, it's an interesting story. You know, we've got a good expression of the kid. The fact that he's wearing a Bass Pro cap hat, you know, like these little visual things that are telling the story of our city, of the people in our city, and some of our, like, you know, favorite stores or landmarks. And then of course, that's a sport. Those of you who know me know this is a sports ball. I do know it's a basketball, you know, and that's a very American sport. While it's played around the world, you know, basketball is oftentimes associated with the United States. So that capturing that little bit of our American culture in sports was another reason for why this photo, I thought, you know, did a good job of helping to tell the story of Nashville. I will say I went back and forth on this photo. I really like the photo. I like the expression. I like the gesture. It was really more of a technical consideration for why it didn't make the final cut. The way that I'm guessing that it was either a really noisy shot, really had a lot high ISO, and some of the denoise or skin smoothing just looked a little bit unrealistic. So that one was like the photo, but from a technical point of view. So I ended up putting it in the second round, but not the first round. These two shots, if you know me, you know I love color. I really liked both of these shots, but in the final selection, when it came down to the images, the story, I was looking more for those pictures of people in them. That's why, you know, these made the second cut. This photograph just feels like such a failure scene. You know, I feel like, you know, they're probably waiting on their brother who's playing in a little league game next door, and they're running off some energy. I like the light in it. I like the motion. I like the movement. I like this. They're kind of running into darkness away from us. It's just kind of a fun little moment and really well captured. This one didn't make the final cut. I wasn't quite sure if this would actually happen in Middle Tennessee. I know there was some conversation about the fair and happening outside of Nashville. I wasn't quite sure about that, and I knew we were trying to stick within Nashville. It's a nice photo, and it's got those kind of micro composition things I was looking for, with people in their individual space in the frame, the repetition. It is something that feels very much like Southern America, but if you've traveled outside of the United States, you will know that this scene is repeated all over all of the places in the world that I've traveled to. I have been to fairs and festivals, and they all have these pop-up balloon walls or games that are similar to this. So it seems uniquely, you know, America and the United States, or South America, it's Southern part of the United States, but really truly you see these at fairs around the world. So I thought it's kind of interesting that maybe people in Germany would respond to that, but that one ended up as a second cut. There was two shots from the Kurdish bakery that I went back and forth on. I ended up selecting this one because from a formal point of view, I thought it was a stronger photograph. I really like I like the direct gaze that you have with the baker. I really like the composition with the bread in the foreground, leading you back to him, and then, you know, you've got these other little visual clues back here that it's a working bakery. So, just really nice composition. Again, speaking to the diversity that we have in Nashville with a really large Kurdish population that's in Nashville. I was really glad to see that they, got represented in our story of Nashville. This was cool. So we got American football, right? But we've got women playing American football and the Misfits. That's pretty clever. This was that kind of story in the way that it's telling the story of something that is a very uniquely American pastime, but with a little bit of a twist to it that again, speaks to the diversity that we have in Nashville. And let's see, last but not least, got to have a guy with a guitar because this is Nashville. And so I went back and forth between these two shots. Let me pull them up side by side. The picture on the right from a formal point of view is probably the picture that I prefer. It's a tight composition. I really like the light on the guitar and this nice little kind of rim lighting here and rim lighting here. But I selected the picture on the left because of, surprise, the story and these little visual clues that are in it. The dollar bill, right? If this is being shown in Germany, that's going to be something that seems, a little different. Just like if someone had a picture that showed the euro for us, that would be something that would be a clue of the location. This just kind of dark dive bar sort of feel. There's some caution tape over here. I'm not quite sure why that is here. But really it was this little visual clue of the tips and the donation for the band that's telling that story of all of the musicians that come to Nashville to make their fortune. And they're playing for tips and hoping that the right person is sitting in the audience hearing them. And then when we go to the actual subjects of the photograph, you've got a nice kind of soulful feeling from the way that he's singing here. Expression and gesture again are successful for both of those. So are there any questions about any of the photos that maybe I skipped past or
yeah, if you don't mind going back a little bit, it is mine, so I was wanting to hear what you thought of that one.
Which one? I don't know.
Tennessee State Museum, sorry. And I think we didn't do.
I'm so glad. I'm so sorry. I skipped over that.
I don't think we did the Bellevue one. That's a few more over.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go back and hit some of the ones that I skipped. Love this shot. There's so much going on. There's so many different layers of things that are interesting in the shot. First of all, you've got the 3 stars that represent our flag, right? So you've got that symbolism. I love that you've got the figures that are very nicely framed right here. This guy leaning against. We've got a person over here. It looks like they've got a backpack and some stuff they're carrying around. You got a kid looking out at the skyline of Nashville in the background. So as a picture that shows the skyline of Nashville, this is definitely a really unique perspective. And I think black and white was a really good choice for this photo because I think color was probably visually very busy with lots of stuff going on. And so black and white, you really got to nail it down to the more graphic elements in this photograph. And that attention to detail, I know it's not accidental. If it is, don't tell me, right? But this, the framing of the Capitol there, the fact that we can see the spires of the Batman building, right? All of those. And then what was the other?
It's the Bellevue Park. It says Bellevue. It's like 3 over. It's the 3-star one.
Kids in it. Yeah. Okay.
That one. I think.
So again, telling a story. We've got I like the fact that we've got a diverse couple. We've got a mixed race couple here with children they're playing guitars. All right, it's Nashville. They're playing a guitar. So that little bit of telling the story was interesting to me too. I like the interaction between the subjects. Of course, we got a family out with the dog. They've got their carriage. We got the girl in the tutu. I mean, like this is really a great capture of a family out and about enjoying one of our local parks. So it's about the story. All right, any others? Was there anything else I skipped over or specific questions? You want me to show just I can show, this was the final selection. So as I looked at the final selection, again, I was kind of looking at that, timeline of the day, which I think it's really only our morning shots that are absent of people, which is what happens in the morning if you get out really early. Yeah, I think those are the only ones that are absent of people. Everything else has people in them. Like I said, this was not an easy task. Not at all. It was fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoy the curation selection process. So now I can filter and show.
I think you have to take, well,
Yeah, I had to take the first filter off. There we go. So these were, it's 23. Oh, there's some that are labeled yellow. Don't look at the ones that are yellow.
you can go over to the filter option, over there where it says export, that lower box to the left panel. You can filter by specific label color.
I'm just going to ask you guys for now to ignore the yellows. There's only 3 that are labeled yellow. So in my second tier, I expanded beyond the idea of the including the people and telling the story to have more images that were urban landscape types of images that show some of the interesting buildings and architecture that we have here in Nashville. Because yeah, it was a challenge to narrow it down to, what was my final count? 23 was what I was.
24.
24.
24 hours, 24 photos. Emily, this is Emily Passano. I just want to chime in while people are still looking and enjoying and reflecting on all of this, to say that, wow, your commentary was so insightful in terms of just, of course, the excuse me, the elements of the photos that pulled them together and made them stand out and made the composition work. But what an extra level of insight you brought in selecting the photos in terms of the cultural aspects of Nashville itself and in comparison with the rest of the world. And I just am so inspired by this discussion. Lots of notes to think about, lots of things, and we just can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it. If this were to happen again, I would love to be involved.
Oh yes, I
maybe
was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah, even maybe on the front end a little bit more, and
Yeah.
more of that kind of editor role of like, let's be deliberate about what we're shooting to tell a more complete story, because there are some things that I feel like we're missing. And of course, you can't capture everything about a location or city in 24 hours. But I like one point that I did feel was missing And when I talked about this with Wayne and Joe, there's the fact that there's not a church in here. And this is Nashville. We are the buckle of the Bible Belt. You know, religion is very important to our culture, to many people in our culture. And I would have liked to have seen something that represented a little bit more diversity as far as the religion goes. There was one picture that was of a mosque that had a lock and chain in front of it. And while I appreciated that it was capturing some more diverse religions in Nashville, the symbolism of the lock and the chain in front of it to me didn't ring true to Nashville's to the kind of openness that Nashville is striving for, I think. And so that was part of my reason for that particular image not being selected. And people will have different opinions on that, I know, and the symbolism on that and what that might or might not represent. So those were just a few things that, you know, that I thought about as I was making the final selections. But like I said, there's no way that 24 images is going to capture the entirety represent the entirety of the diversity within Nashville. And I know that there are other people in this room who are more highly qualified than I am to actually speak to that. Where's Leslie and Laura, right? People who have those backgrounds in sociology and anthropology, who've spent much more time, thought, and research, you know, considering some of those ideas. But for me, it's very important that we are deliberate in how we think about representation with images. Representation not only from, you know, what's captured by the camera, but who's a part of capturing the images, which is why I teach at a community college, because I want to be part of increasing that representation of who's behind the camera.
I did have a question. Do you think that it would have helped you or hindered you to have been able to see the photographs that were selected in Germany for display?
No, I don't think that would have. I don't think that would have influenced me because, you know, they're going to tell their story. One thing I thought about might have been interesting would have been for me after that initial selection to say, okay, let's look at what we have and see what's missing as a group. And then as a group, someone say, well, you know, I don't see this part of Nashville being represented here. Did anybody get a shot of? And then coming back and like, because I know the idea of the whole 24 hours, right? You know, so you're not going to go back and like, well, I didn't shoot that, but I can go shoot it tomorrow. Now I know that doesn't work. But maybe there might have been some other pictures that might have told the story in a more well-rounded way. And I'm not saying that it's not, but that might have, you know, filled in some gaps that you guys have sitting on your hard drives. So, you know, that might be part of the conversation of how to structure this if it happens in the future.
You know, that's an excellent suggestion. And I'm thinking your earlier comment about having more than one single juror might also be worth talking about. And possibly what you're talking about here is, you know, the first cut, what are we missing? And having interactions with people, honestly, who only, I mean, that day I probably shot 100, had to pick 5 to send.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe there was that thing that the juror felt like nobody else had gotten. Who knows? So
no, and that's tough too, because you gave me 5, or like, okay, so there was like, you know, 3 pictures from the same festival or 3 pictures from the same location, you know, and then I chose which one I felt like told the story in the strongest way or spoke to me. If then, you had like, well, I also shot this location, but I didn't include any of those because I thought this location was better, right? When you don't have the whole picture, sometimes you make your choices as to what you submit to the jury to exhibit and avoid.
Well, and just to build on that, one of the things that I'm hearing in this discussion is long range. If we continue to do this, and Sister Cities is definitely interested. I mean, they've made a banner that isn't just for Magdeburg, it's for day in the life, with snap photographers and Sister Cities, and they've been a huge support. I'm not sure that we pointed out how much money they put into it in order to frame the German pictures, print and frame the German pictures. I mean, they've been huge, and yay, they want to do some more. So if we look up and in 10 years, we've done 5 different cities. And of course, we've got the element of time as well as place over that period of time. But if we have a deliberate process like you're suggesting, Emily, with, I mean, just the national photos alone over that period of time, trying to portray our city on a particular day or whatever we decide to do. I think it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some real opportunity to create an interesting archive of photographs of our city. So just FYI, I still don't know whose pictures are whose. I mean, there's some of them that I know, but I don't know whose are whose.
Emily, this is a question for Emily Naff. Have you seen the We Are Nashville website? And
I have, yeah.
I thought
I missed seeing it when the work was on display in a gallery.
yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
But it was some really compelling story images
That's
there. I just wanted to make sure you've seen it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some opportunity to be, even just more intentional about moving forward with this, as a group with SNAP. And I think this is a great first start.
Well, thanks. I want to thank you. I want to thank Wayne. Everybody needs to just applaud Wayne. You can't believe how many cats we all turned into that he had to herd.
True.
It really, yay, Wayne, yay, Emily. And thanks to all the photographers who actually participated and who are helping out with the shows that are coming up. I mean, Chuck and his truck. Lordy mercy, these are not easy shows. I mean, things like the pressing can get difficult, but things intense, that can get really, really challenging. And so somehow we're pulling together and we're doing some great things. And I'm, for one, am so happy to be part of this group. And thank everybody for participating. Carl, any last words? We turn over to you.
Nothing that I can think of. It was really good presentation, Emily. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl.
And I think the next meeting with Gerald sounds like it's going to be a bunch of fun.
Yes.
We'll just
Hey, Gerald, can I invite my students? He's still here.
You can bring food.
Gerald's not here anymore.
He escaped before you could. I'm sure it's fine.
I have a couple of students who actually would probably be a real good fit for SNAP. Because I get 18 to 80 in my classes, right? So there's a few students who are doing some fun alternative processes and working with film who might enjoy. It might be a good introduction for them to see if they want to be part of SNAP.
Yeah, send them on over. That'd be great. All right.
You know some of them, Emily.
Yeah, I love these students I'm working with over there. Thank you all. We shall say good night. I will try to get the recording out to folks. I know there were several people who were out of town and who were like, please record it. I have to be in Italy, etc. But we will get that out for everybody, and thank everybody for coming tonight. see you next month on a lot of
28th.
places, at the JCC
Yeah.
reception and at the Gerald's demo. Bye. Oh, and to celebrate Nashville. Oh my gosh, we're going to see everybody bunch this month. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.